Today, we're prying open a book that history tried to burn, a forbidden text that claims our calendar is a lie, our laws are just copies, and the real origin of evil? Well, it's a story far darker than anything you've ever been told. We're talking about the Book of Jubilees. For 2,000 years, it was hunted down, its copies destroyed, its teachings driven into the shadows. You have to ask yourself, what secrets could possibly be so dangerous that they needed to be completely erased?
Well, the answer is as simple as it is world-shattering. The Book of Jubilees didn't just offer a few new ideas. It claimed the entire reality people knew was wrong. It was a direct assault on the ruling religious powers, saying their most sacred traditions and even the way they tracked time were a total corruption of a divine, eternal truth.
And the story of how this book even survived, it's just unbelievable. It was written during this really chaotic time, banned almost instantly, and then, poof, it vanished. For centuries, it was only kept alive in secret by the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. That is, until 1947, when explorers stumbled upon the Dead Sea Scrolls and found fragments of the original Hebrew text. This forbidden book came roaring back to life.
So let's get into its first and maybe its most controversial secret. A calendar that wasn't created by humans, but was handed down from heaven as a perfect blueprint for time itself.
Now here's where things get really wild. The book says it wasn't written by any man. Jubilees claims it was dictated, word for word, to Moses on a smoke-choked Mount Sinai. The scene it paints is just epic. A spectral, otherworldly being called the Angel of the Presence appears out of the lightning to reveal the hidden story of the cosmos.
And this is the core of the conflict. The angel reveals this perfect solar calendar of 364 days. It divides neatly into exactly 52 weeks. You know what that means? Holy days fall on the exact same date every single year. Perfect, tidy, eternal. This was completely different from the messy lunar calendar the temple authorities used, which was shorter and needed constant fiddling, causing the sacred festivals to drift all over the place.
So you see, this wasn't just some friendly debate over scheduling. This was absolute heresy. By claiming to have a perfect calendar straight from an angel, the Book of Jubilees was shouting from the rooftops that the temple priests were wrong, that their link to the divine was broken, that they were leading everyone astray.
But trust me, the calendar was just the beginning. The book's secrets run so much deeper. It pulls back the curtain on a cosmic war, giving a truly terrifying explanation for the origin of evil, and it fills in all those mysterious gaps you find in the book of Genesis.
In this dark tale, corruption didn't start on earth with an apple. It rained down from the heavens. A group of angelic beings, known as the Watchers, came down to earth. But they didn't come to guide us. They came to corrupt us, teaching humanity all the forbidden arts, the secrets of making weapons, of casting spells, of deception.
And from their unions with human women, monstrous children were born, the Nephilim. These were giants, and their hunger was insatiable. They devoured all the food, then the animals, and finally, they started to devour humanity itself, unleashing absolute violence upon the world.
And pulling the strings behind this whole catastrophe was a single, sinister mastermind, a figure that Jubilees gives a name, Mastema, the Prince of Hatred. He was the one whispering in the Watchers' ears, orchestrating the entire fall from the shadows.
So after the Great Flood comes to wipe the slate clean and destroy the Nephilim, Mastema isn't defeated. Oh no. In a move of pure, chilling cunning, he goes to God and strikes a bargain.
He was allowed to keep 1/10 of the evil spirits, the ghosts of the dead Nephilim, which would become the demons of our world. And their purpose? To test humanity, to tempt us and lead us astray, ensuring that evil has a permanent, divinely sanctioned place on earth.
So you're probably asking, how could any of this be true? Where did all this forbidden history come from? Well, the book has one single cosmic source for all its claims.
Jubilees introduces this incredible idea of the heavenly tablets. The best way to think of them is like the source code for the universe, an eternal blueprint written by God before time even began. It contains every law, every event, every prophecy that will ever happen. Everything is already written.
Now, if that's true, it completely reframes all of history. It means the great laws weren't created for humans. The Sabbath was an eternal principle before the world even existed. The law against murder was a heavenly rule long before Cain. These laws were just us finding out what was already written in the heavens. So that means when Moses brought the 10 Commandments down from the mountain, he wasn't carrying a new set of laws. He was carrying a copy, just one tiny fragment of this massive celestial text that had existed for all eternity on the heavenly tablets.
And right before Moses descended the mountain, the angel of the presence revealed one last secret from those tablets, a huge apocalyptic prophecy that spelled out the entire destiny of the people of Israel.
The prophecy lays out this dark, cyclical path. It foretells that the people will turn away from God's law, which will lead to terrible punishment and exile. Then there's a time of great tribulation, an age of evil orchestrated by Mastema himself. But it doesn't end in darkness. The vision culminates in a great repentance, and then a final, amazing redemption when God creates a new heaven and a new earth.
And this brings us right back to the beginning. Even though it was hunted down and banned, these ideas, this divine calendar, this cosmic war, this eternal law, they were just too powerful to be destroyed. They survived in secret for thousands of years. And you gotta remember, for the people who hid it, like the community behind the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, this wasn't some heretical banned book. To them, the Book of Jubilees was the real story. It was the original, unaltered truth of the universe, and they were its guardians.
The very existence of this book just forces you to wonder, doesn't it? If a text with a completely different version of reality could be hidden away for 2 millennia, only to pop up again in a desert cave, what other truths are still out there, just waiting in the shadows of history to be found?
What if I told you that the oldest evil in our world wasn't born from the earth, but actually fell from the sky? We're about to open a chapter of a story that claims just that. And this isn't just some story of sin. It's a chronicle of total ruin. It's about a cosmic war that literally shaped our reality, and a dark pact that made sure evil would never, ever be completely erased. So, way before the Great Flood, a corruption started to spread. But here's the thing. It didn't start with humanity. It began with the celestial beings who were sent to guide us. They were called the Watchers. I mean, their original job was pure gold. Just imagine it. Angelic guides coming down from heaven to teach mankind, to show us the right way to live. But, as you can probably guess, that noble mission got twisted. Really, really badly. And look at how they fell. They didn't just mess up, they became teachers of chaos. They started revealing secrets that should have stayed locked up in heaven. Things like sorcery, making weapons, even how to use makeup and jewelry to deceive people. They basically unleashed hell on a world that had no idea what was coming. And then came the final straw, the one that sealed everyone's fate. They completely broke the sacred rule separating the heavenly from the earthly. And from that forbidden union, something absolutely monstrous was about to be born. The result of their sin? The Nephilim. And these weren't just giants. They were enormous, ravenous creatures, born with a hunger so huge it could consume the entire world. Can you imagine the horror? These things just started eating everything. I mean, they ate all the food in the world, stripping the land bare and leaving humans to starve. The very first thing they took was our survival. But an appetite like that, it's just not natural. It can't be satisfied. So when all the plants were gone, they turned on the animals, throwing the entire natural order into chaos just to feed themselves. And this is where it gets truly terrifying. Their hunger became so insane, they started eating other creatures. And then they started eating people. The whole world just plunged into this nightmare of violence and death, all because of the giants' endless hunger. But here's the twist. This whole catastrophe wasn't some tragic accident. Nope. Behind it all, there was a puppet master pulling the strings, orchestrating the downfall from the very beginning. And he has a name, Mastema. He's described as the leader of evil spirits, the prince of hatred. He was the one who whispered those corrupting ideas into the ears of the Watchers in the first place. He was the architect of this whole mess. The world had become so unbelievably wicked, so twisted, that the only solution left was a total reset. The plan was to wash the world clean with a great flood, to get rid of the giants and imprison the angels who started it all. But right when his entire evil plan is about to get washed away, Mastema makes a brilliant move. Instead of fighting a losing battle, he tries a totally different strategy, a cosmic gamble. So what could he possibly do? And this right here is the most chilling part of the entire story. Mastema's dark bargain. He steps in front of the divine throne, but he's not there to beg for mercy. He's there to make a demand. And think about how cunning this is. He frames his own evil as a necessary part of the divine plan. He basically says, look, if you destroy all the evil spirits, I can't do my job. I need them to tempt humanity, to test their loyalty. He argues he's an essential part of the system. And he's very specific. He doesn't ask for all of them to be saved. He asks for a fraction, a tithe of evil. He wants control over 1/10 of the demons, which are the restless, disembodied spirits of those dead giants. Now, here's the twist that changes everything. The request is granted. A portion of the evil spirits were allowed to stay on Earth, to continue their work under Mastema's command, all by divine decree. So you see what happened, right? The flood was supposed to be a total cleansing, a final solution. But because of Mastema's deal, it was only a partial victory. A seed of that ancient evil was allowed to remain on purpose. So what exactly are these demons we're talking about? Well, according to this text, they are the tormented spirits of the giants. Because they were born from this unnatural mix of heaven and earth, they can't find peace. They're just stuck here, existing only to cause trouble and lead humans astray. So the floodwaters went down and a new world began, but it wasn't truly clean. The spiritual war wasn't over at all. It just entered a new, officially sanctioned phase. And Mastema, he got to keep his army. Mastema's real victory wasn't stopping the flood. He knew he couldn't. His victory was ensuring his influence would survive the flood. He sacrificed 9/10 of his followers to guarantee that a loyal 10th would remain, securing his dark role in the world forever. And there you have it. This ancient story offers a pretty wild and unsettling explanation for why evil still exists. It suggests it's not just a human problem, but a cosmic legacy, the result of a dark pact made right at the dawn of our world. It kind of leaves you wondering, if this war is still going on, how are we supposed to fight it? All right, today we are cracking open a manuscript that for almost 2,000 years was basically hidden from the world, the Book of Jubilees. And what's inside? Well, it tells a completely different version of stories you thought you knew. It's a secret history that really makes you rethink things. So let's just dive right in. So what if everything you learned about the world after the Great Flood was, well, just one side of the story? The Book of Jubilees wants us to think about a totally different starting point for humanity, a world map that wasn't drawn up by people, but was literally charted in the heavens. Our journey kicks off right as the floodwaters are finally going down. But this isn't just about surviving. According to Jubilees, this is about a complete, divine reorganization of the entire planet. We're talking about a secret geography that was set in stone from the very beginning of time. And right away, we see where the story we know starts to change. So Genesis tells us Noah's Ark came to rest on Mount Ararat. The Book of Jubilees, though, it gets way more specific. It actually names the peak, Mount Lubar, which is one of the mountains in the Ararat Range. Now, that might sound like a tiny detail, but it's not. It's the very first coordinate being plotted on this secret, sacred map. So, okay, the world's fresh and new. How do you divide it up between Noah's sons? In Genesis, it's pretty straightforward. Noah basically declares who gets what. But Jubilees, it paints a way more mystical picture. It says the division was made by casting divine lots. And that changes everything. It's not just a dad making a choice anymore. This is a sacred, totally impartial act of God, making sure every son got the exact piece of land that was destined for him. And this, right here, this is the heart of it. The Book of Jubilees is telling us that the map of the world, where all the nations ended up, wasn't some historical accident. It wasn't about who migrated where or who conquered who. Nope. It was a preordained blueprint, a divine plan for all of humanity, and it was recorded on heavenly tablets long before the flood even happened. Okay, so we've gone from the physical geography of the earth, and now the story shifts to something else, the passing down of divine knowledge. See, this book claims that the patriarch Abraham wasn't just some super faithful guy. He was actually a student in a kind of celestial school, being taught secrets straight from heaven itself. And this is a really crucial point, where all divine law actually comes from. Jubilees introduces this idea of the heavenly tablets, I want you to think of them like the master blueprint, the original files. You know the stone tablets Moses got up on Mount Sinai? Well, according to this text, those were just a copy. The original eternal law existed in heaven before the world even began.
So Abraham, he gets a VIP pass to this celestial library. He doesn't just stumble upon these truths. He gets a direct, divine education from angelic tutors. Just picture it for a second. Abraham sitting there in his tent, lit by the moon, the air just buzzing with this ancient wisdom. And he's surrounded by these shimmering, luminous angels, not just popping in with messages, but acting as his teachers. You can almost see their glow as they reveal the secrets of the universe and guide his hand as he learns the sacred language of heaven.
And listen, this was not some casual tutoring session. This was a full-blown curriculum. The angels taught Abraham all the specifics, the eternal laws right from those heavenly tablets, the exact precise way to do sacrifices and festivals. They even had him studying ancient texts that were passed down from his ancestors. But to do all that, he was going to need to learn a new language. And there it is. This is an incredible claim from the Book of Jubilees. Hebrew isn't just some ancient human language. No, it's the language of creation itself, the very tongue that the angels speak in heaven. It had been forgotten after the whole Tower of Babel incident and was then restored specifically for Abraham so he could read those sacred ancient writings. All right, so from divine education, the story takes a sharp turn into divine warfare. Jubilees completely recast the Exodus from Egypt. Suddenly, it's not just a story about freeing a people from a human tyrant, it's the climax of an incredibly intense spiritual war against a powerful, unseen enemy. So, let me introduce you to the main villain of this hidden history, Mastema. His name literally means hatred or hostility. He's the leader of the evil spirits, a really cunning strategist who, and this is key, operates with God's permission to test and tempt humanity. In the Exodus story, he becomes the direct spiritual opponent to God's entire plan. And you gotta understand, Mastema isn't some shadowy figure just lurking in the background. No, he is an active player in this whole drama. Jubilees tells us he's the one who personally juiced up Pharaoh's magicians so they could copy God's miracles. He's the one who worked on Pharaoh's heart, hardening it until it was completely unreasonable. And then, get this, in one absolutely shocking moment, he tries to physically attack and kill Moses before the mission even gets off the ground. I mean, his fingerprints are all over every single act of defiance. This changes how you see the 10 plagues completely, right? They weren't just big, flashy signs meant to convince a stubborn king. According to Jubilees, each plague was a targeted, almost military-style strike against the demonic gods of Egypt, all of whom were under Mastema's command. It was a systematic takedown of his entire spiritual power structure. You might be wondering, where did Mastema even get this army? Well, Jubilees has this chilling little detail. After the Great Flood, when God was about to destroy all the evil spirits that came from the fallen watchers, Mastema actually argued his case. He said he needed a force to carry out his job of testing mankind, and God allowed him to keep 1/10 of them. That 1/10 became his demonic legion. So when you look at it this way, the Exodus was really a victory on two different fronts. Yes, it was a physical liberation from slavery for sure, but it was also a decisive spiritual victory over Mastema. I mean, even after the final plague, he was bound by angels, only to be let go for one last desperate attack to try and wipe out Israel at the Red Sea, an attack that, as we know, completely failed. So the Book of Jubilees gives us this universe where divine maps, heavenly languages, and cosmic battles are all woven into the very fabric of human history. It really leaves us with a pretty powerful question to chew on. If these ancient stories have such a deep, unseen spiritual layer, what kind of forces, good and evil, might be operating just beneath the surface of our own lives, shaping things in ways we can't even see?
Today, we're going to step into the shoes of a historian, digging into an ancient and, frankly, pretty intense text called the Book of Jubilees. Get this. It imagines a universe built on a profound, almost terrifying form of cosmic justice. We're talking about a reality where every single action is recorded, every sin becomes a literal debt, and the cosmos itself, well, it keeps the books.
And right there, that's the heart of it. This isn't just about feeling guilty or making a moral mistake. According to this worldview, a sin is an actual entry in a celestial ledger. It's a real outstanding debt you owe to the universe. And that debt, it has weight. It is real.
So let's treat this like we're entering a cosmic courtroom. This is our opening statement.
We're here to examine the evidence from this ancient text, and we have to start with the court's official records, the very foundation of its entire legal system.
Now, the legal bedrock of this whole system is something called the heavenly tablets. And here's the mind-bending part. These tablets, this eternal law, supposedly existed before creation itself. So you know the 10 Commandments that Moses brought down from the mountain? In this view, those weren't new laws. They were just copies, photocopies really, of a perfect and absolute cosmic code that was already there.
And what's crucial to understand is that this system is totally inescapable. There's no statute of limitations. There's no, oh, they forgot about that. Nope. Every single deed, good or bad, is written down, waiting for a final accounting. It's like the universe has a perfect, unshakable memory.
Okay, so let's call our first piece of evidence to the stand. The first murder. We're going to look at the story of Cain and Abel. Because the Book of Jubilees doesn't see it as just a human tragedy. It frames it as the first major violation of that eternal heavenly law.
The book lays out this chain of events with a kind of chilling precision. It starts with something deeply human, right? Envy. That internal feeling of anger festers, then turns into deception, and finally into horrific violence. But that last step, step 4, that's where this story goes cosmic. The murder isn't just a crime against Abel, it's a crime against creation itself. His innocent blood literally pollutes the ground it touches.
So the consequences here are massive. Cain didn't just break a human rule, he violated a timeless decree from those heavenly tablets. The earth was physically scarred, its ability to grow things was actually diminished. The book calls it a profound tear in the very fabric of existence. He didn't just kill his brother, he damaged the relationship between humanity and the world itself.
All right, on to Exhibit B. This case file really hammers home that idea of sin as a measurable, quantifiable debt. We're talking about the story of Joseph and his brothers, a crime that gets its own detailed entry on that celestial ledger.
And this shows you that direct, one-to-one connection between what happens on earth and what's recorded in the heavens. The brothers use a bloodstained coat to tell a lie, but up in the cosmic record, that same act is recorded as an undeniable truth, a grievous sin, an eternal debt.
And this right here, this is the central haunting image that the text gives us. Just picture it. A giant golden scale hanging in the heavens. On one side, you have the physical evidence of the crime, that bloody coat. And on the other, there's a heavy stone tablet inscribed with ink representing the eternal debt that was just created. You can almost feel the tangible weight of that betrayal.
But just when you think this system is all about grim, inescapable judgment, it gets more complex. It's not only about punishment. The very same heavenly tablets that record the debt also contain the blueprint for its settlement. Justice and mercy, it turns out, are written into the very same cosmic code. Forgiveness is possible, but guess what? That has to be recorded too. So, that raises a pretty big question, doesn't it? If sin keeps creating all this accumulating cosmic debt, how does the system ever find its balance? Well, the Book of Jubilees has an answer, a divinely mandated reset button that's built right into the structure of time itself. See, the whole calendar is designed around cycles of 7. You go through 7 of these 7-year cycles. That brings you to year 49. And then, the 50th year, well, that's the big one. That's the Jubilee, a grand, divinely ordered amnesty for everyone.
And during the Jubilee, society undergoes a radical reset. I mean, think about this. All slaves are set free. All personal, financial debts are completely wiped clean. All land goes back to its original family owners. Now, this isn't just a nice social custom. According to Jubilees, this is a divine command. It's the mechanism for periodically balancing the cosmic books and restoring society to the way it was supposed to be. So, let's bring our case to a close. What's the final, sweeping takeaway from this incredibly powerful ancient worldview? What's the closing argument here?
Here it is, the bottom line. The Book of Jubilees imagines a universe where justice isn't just some abstract idea we came up with. It's a fundamental force of nature, like gravity. In this world, morality has mass, sins create actual debt, and righteousness is a balanced ledger. It's just part of the physics of the cosmos.
And that is the final verdict. According to this text, the law written on those heavenly tablets is the ultimate authority. It's the supreme law of the land, of all lands, all human legal systems, all religious institutions, all of it. It's all secondary to this pre-existing, eternal cosmic order.
And so, that leaves us with one last provocative thought. Let's strip away the ancient context for just a moment.
The core question this text poses is absolutely timeless. If you knew, for a fact, that every single action you took was being meticulously recorded on some kind of eternal ledger, how would that change the way you live? What choices would you make differently? And what kind of debts would you try to avoid?
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into a forbidden text, one that suggests humanity has been living by the wrong clock for thousands of years. And folks, this isn't just about being late. This is a story about a secret war over the very fabric of time itself, with apocalyptic consequences. So let me just ask you this. What if everything you thought you knew about a year, a month, a week was fundamentally wrong? It's a wild idea, right? But it's the exact question at the very heart of an ancient, controversial text called the Book of Jubilees. Now get this, for 2,000 years, this book was basically hidden from the world, and its most radical teaching is about a calendar, not one that came from human stargazing, but one that it claims came directly from God himself, revealed by angels to the prophet Enoch. And the key, the absolute cornerstone of this entire divine system is this number, 364. Not 365 and a quarter like we're used to, no, a perfect whole number. So what's the big deal about 364? Well, it's all about the sheer mathematical perfection. The number divides perfectly into 52 weeks, no leftover days. Each of the 4 seasons gets exactly 91 days, which is precisely 13 weeks. And what does that mean? It means the holy days, the sacred festivals, would never drift. They'd land on the very same day of the week every single year, like clockwork. To the authors, this wasn't just neat. It was proof of a divine, unchanging cosmic order. But here's the thing. Presenting this as God's only true calendar wasn't just some intellectual exercise. Oh no, it was a direct challenge to the religious authorities of the day. It sparked a bitter, brutal war over the nature of secret time itself. And the battle lines couldn't have been clearer. On one side, you have the solar calendar from Jubilees, representing perfect, divine order. And on the other, the lunar calendar used by the temple, which Jubilees condemned as just chaotic, a man-made mess that needed constant, clumsy fixes. The choice was simple: follow God's eternal time or embrace what they saw as a grave mistake. And make no mistake, this was a huge deal. For communities like the one at Qumran, the people who gave us the Dead Sea Scrolls, this was a hill they were literally willing to die on. They completely separated themselves from the temple, creating an isolated society in the desert just so they could live by what they believed was God's one and only true calendar. So what happens when you abandon this divine order? Well, according to the Book of Jubilees, the consequences were nothing short of catastrophic. In a sweeping vision given to Moses on Mount Sinai, an angel revealed the apocalyptic price for getting time wrong. This prophecy laid out a terrifyingly dark future. The angel basically warned Moses, look, your people will eventually reject these eternal laws, including the sacred calendar, and that disobedience is going to invite absolute disaster. And the cost they predicted was total. The prophecy described being exiled from the promised land, the people scattered to the winds. And most devastating of all, the holy temple, the very heart of their world, their connection to God, would be profaned and reduced to a pile of rubble. You can see the tragic logic from their point of view, right? To the followers of Jubilees, the corruption of the temple's lunar system was a sign of a much deeper spiritual rot, and turning away from God's perfect solar-driven order would lead directly, inevitably, to ruin. But, and this is a really important but, amidst the smoke and ashes of this dark prophecy, the angel's vision didn't actually end in despair. It offered an incredible promise of restoration. The prophecy explained that after this long, painful period of punishment and exile, there would be a path back. A heartfelt return to God's laws would trigger a whole new era. It would be the catalyst for a total, complete restoration. And we're not just talking about rebuilding a physical building here. No, this was a vision of a total cosmic renewal, a promise that God would literally remake creation itself, restoring that perfect harmony that had been lost so long ago. And the vision all culminates in this powerful image, a restored New Jerusalem, a perfect new temple. You can just picture it, right? A radiant, golden solar wheel of divine time turning over that landscape of ruin, transforming the darkness into a brilliant rebirth, with the promise of a new heaven literally etched into its rays of light. And yet, even after that incredible vision of ultimate restoration, the Book of Jubilees leaves us with one final and frankly chilling warning about the nature of evil. The text reveals this ancient adversary named Mastema, the Prince of Hatred, the architect of so much of the world's corruption. And here's the twist. He was actually permitted by God to continue his work, to keep testing humanity. Think about that. Even after the Great Flood was supposed to cleanse the earth, Mastema argued to keep a tenth of his evil spirits around to keep tempting and corrupting mankind. The book makes it crystal clear. The battle was never truly over. It continues. So, in the end, the Book of Jubilees frames our entire existence as this epic spiritual war, caught between a perfect, divine order and a persistent, permitted evil. It gives us a universe governed by a flawless celestial clock, but it leaves us wrestling with this profound and unsettling question. If God's order is so perfect, so eternal, why does the fight against chaos and evil have to continue right until the very end?